This is the meeting for different topics. Water resource is one of them, and some other topics that we need to talk about. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting, and I'd like to establish a quorum.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Kane? Mr. Robertson?
Here?
Mr. Huff? Mr. Kirkner? Mr. Soyson?
Here.
Mr. Lester?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Gordon? Secretary Daly? Here. Mr. Vice Chairman, please let the record reflect we have 4 members are present and we do have a quorum.
We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have to approve the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So, Daphne Daly, would you give the administrative report, please, if you have any comments?
I have no administrative matters.
Love that.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll get right into one of the major elements here, the water resource element. Brenda Denny is here to talk to us about this. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to read this statement about a public hearing. To speak at the public hearing, please sign in at the table in the back if you haven't already done so. Public hearing comments should be relevant to the topic at hand, namely the water resource element of the master plan. Speakers should state their name, address, and talk into the microphone to facilitate audio and video recording. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Brenda?
Good evening. So, as Mr. Robertson said, we are here to conduct a public hearing on the 2024 version of the water resources element. This public hearing includes both the Carroll County Planning Commission as well as the planning commissions for the towns of Manchester and New Windsor. The water resources element document is a document that all 9 county jurisdictions, the county plus the 8 municipalities, work together on. So it's one document for all the jurisdictions. Now, if I can get the mouse to work. I don't even see a mouse.
Do you want me to see this? We'll get there eventually.
Okay. So the purpose of the water resources element, you all know this, it's to show opportunities and limitations for water resources and address the relationship between plan growth and water resources. And we're doing this ahead of all of the comprehensive plans because this information will help inform the next version of the master plan and the comprehensive plans that are coming after this in terms of how this may present opportunities or limitations for growth. So just to review quickly, all the planning commissions reviewed the draft. Everybody, all the planning commissions gave approval to send the draft out for the state-required 60-day review period, where the state agencies are given 60 days to review and comment on the document, as well as adjoining jurisdictions. So the counties that surround us also received the document for review. On January 14th, we held a public information session, so that was completed. We had 1 person attend that. And so the next step was for all the planning commissions to hold a public hearing. Aside from the 2 planning commissions that are with us, all the town planning commissions have held their public hearings except for Tawnytown and Mount Airy. Theirs are scheduled for February 23rd. After that, all the hearings will be done and we'll be able to address the comments. So because this is a public hearing, of course, the document has been available for public review since November 15th. I already mentioned it went to 60-day review at that same time for the state agencies. We received comments from them on January 20th. The public information session was held January 14th on behalf of everybody, and we had one person attend that. And of course, this was already said, but just a reminder that this is only to take comments on the WRE, not any other agenda items, 3 minutes for speaker. You do not need to provide any responses, and there's no question and answer period. If anybody has questions on it, they can contact me after the meeting. So at this time, we'd be ready to open the public hearing for comment.
Okay, is there any comment? I'd like to welcome, sorry I didn't, because I'd like to welcome the members of New Windsor and Manchester Council here. You have any comment? Any?
Ralph, can we get everybody to introduce themselves,
Yes,
please, in their jurisdiction? Thank you.
Be a good idea. Drew?
Drew Strine, New Windsor Planning Commission.
I'm Dave Hoffman. I'm the liaison from the Town Council to the Planning Commission.
Glenn Monroe, New Windsor Planning Commission.
Kevin Shaunis, New Windsor Planning Commission.
Dave Grayson, New Windsor Planning Commission.
Dale Wilder, Manchester Planning Commission.
Henry Leskinen, Manchester Planning Commission.
Chris DeMario, Manchester Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for showing up here tonight. Do we have any public comment? Any discussion at all? Okay, we have a couple options here, and we can hold this.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. We can. I'll get my notes here in a minute. Bear with me. We can hold this, hold the record open, leave it open for 10 business days. We can close the record this evening, or we could leave the record open until February the 23rd. What's your pleasure?
My recommendation, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
My recommendation was that you just go ahead and leave it open to the 23rd, since we have 2 more planning commissions who are holding hearings that night, and we'll be taking comments until that time anyway.
Okay.
Also, because this is a joint hearing, any, individual who was here for the hearing, who is a commission member, both of your commission or any other commission, could be the one to make the vote, since we're doing this all as a group right now.
Okay.
So, what's your pleasure?
I would move that we leave the record open until February 23rd.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hold on,
Wait.
hold on, hold on. I'm so sorry. Can we do this as a roll call by each board, so that way each group has a record of what their votes are?
All right, so,
So it could be Carroll County, Manchester, then New Windsor, whatever order you please, but as individually, roll call.
Wait, so my motion, does it pertain to us, or does it pertain to them too?
It would pertain to you only, and then they would each need to make their own.
That's what I thought. I apologize. So let's knock us out. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Huff? Ms. Kirkner?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Swason?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon? Mr. Vice Chairman, please let the record reflect we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
okay. Now, we go to the,
Yes, so whichever one of you would like to, whichever group would like to go first.
Well, Manchester can go first. Should I?
I'll make a motion, we leave the record open until February 23rd.
I will second the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to let the record open until February
I'll make a motion that we leave the record open to the 23rd.
2nd? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, So I will be back after I go through the comments and provide staff recommendations on the comments. And that will go to all the planning commissions, and then everybody will again make their own decisions on the revisions to be made. So you'll be seeing me in the next month or so. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 7, the final site plan for Evapco, the contractor storage yard. David?
Good evening, commission members. It is always a pleasure to see you at a different time of day. Let me get things situated here. Okay. So before you this evening is one project being presented by myself, David Beecraft, with the Development Review Division. We do have a representative here of the project. I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Jim Mathias with Development Design Consultants.
And before you is the Evapco Contractor Equipment Storage Yard, file number S249. And this is before you as a final site plan. You actually may be familiar with this. It was before the commission around this time last year. And what's being proposed is a storage yard for the neighboring Evapco business. So for those who might not be familiar with the area, the property itself is highlighted here on the screen. And where we are is, if you can see this hazed area, that is the city of Tawnytown, and we are right on the outskirts of that. And the property itself is mostly zoned agriculture. You can see by the purple designation that there is a little bit of industrial zoning on the property as well. Some of the surrounding properties are mostly agriculture. If you look to the south, you can see that the property is undeveloped, except for a single residential dwelling. Immediately to the east is zoned industrial and undeveloped. If you look at those houses directly to the west along Kraus Mill Road, so those are residential dwellings, and then the property adjoining to the north is within the city limits, and that is where the Evapco business lies. So if we zoom in on the property itself, so in its entirety, the property is 78 acres and some change. And the property is also split two ways. So it is split once by Kraus Mill Road, and then split again by the railroad. And what we are going to focus on is that middle 54-acre parcel. So if we zoom in once more, you can see that the property is mostly, or actually it is undeveloped. It is essentially mostly wooded and also farmland. As mentioned, there are some adjoining properties that are fixed with private dwellings. You can see that there is a stream that runs along the north end of the property here, but there's also a stream that runs along Kraus Mill Road as well, which is not shown on here, but I'll get into that a little bit into the presentation. You can see this red and white line that cuts through the property. That is a the Tawnytown Greenway, which is a planned major street. Again, I'll get a little bit more into that as well. The property is outside of the priority funding area, but it is within the Tawnytown designated growth area. And so I have a few different options on how to look at what's being proposed. I'll just show you all the options, and you can tell me which one you prefer as far as the easiest readability. So I tried to superimpose the contract equipment storage yard on the aerial itself. This is showing the full property. We have one where it's zoomed in directly around what's being proposed. We have an overall site plan drawing that was provided, and this is how it was provided. And then we have a zoomed in drawing or engineered drawing. Is there a preference on which slide I remain on as I go through the rest of this presentation?
Back up one.
This one?
One more.
One more.
This
There
one?
you go.
There you go.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
I'm in with you on that. I'm in with you on that.
Okay, so what's being proposed is a 3-acre outdoor storage yard. And ultimately, what this will be for is to store equipment from the Evapco business prior to shipping out to wherever it's going. So I'm going to go back just one more briefly. You can see, again, this red and white line here is indicative of the planned major street that is within the county master plan. You can see this facility is not in the way of that roadway by any means. Along with this, so there will be a chain link fence that will surround the facility. There will be no proposed lights. There will be no proposed signs. If you're looking at this drawing here, so these boulder-looking symbols represent a gravel base outside of the facility. So you can see there's a stormwater management facility to the rear, and there's 2 stormwater management facilities to the front. Those lines that are surrounding the facility show grass swales that will capture the runoff and direct it to those stormwater management facilities. So as I mentioned, this property is mostly zoned agriculture. A contracted equipment storage yard is a conditional use within the agricultural zoning district. The applicant went before the Board of Zoning Appeals on September 26, 2023. And the Board of Zoning Appeals granted approval of the conditional use on this property. Now, with that approval, they did have 3 conditions of approval. The first one is that there will be no lighting at the site. The second is that the hours at the site will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from Monday to Fridays, with occasional work on Saturdays with the same hours. And the last one is that there will be no manufacturing conducted on the site, and it will solely be used for the storage of equipment. All the information that they've shown in this site plan aligns with those 3 conditions of approval. Access to the property is by way of a 25-foot paved access drive that's connecting the facility to Kraus Mill Road. As part of this access drive, I mentioned previously that there is a stream that runs along Kraus Mill Road. This access drive will be crossing over that stream. And because of that stream crossing, there were variances that were needed to be sought after from the Floodplain Management Office as well as the Water Resources Office. Both of those variances have been approved, and the only condition of approval was within the Water Resources variance that just noted needing to get those necessary permits from the state and from the feds as well. The project was brought before, so it was initially received March 26th, 2024, and it went to the Technical Review Committee meeting on April 22nd, 2024. There were some citizens present at that meeting, and some of their main concerns were in reference to traffic to the site, what it may cause, as well as the view from the property as well. So Looking at the traffic numbers for this project, the travel to and from the property did not necessitate any traffic impact studies. However, during the review by our engineering review, it was noted that the piping, the culvert that runs under Kraus Mill Road currently, you can see by those black lines there, there is an existing 24-inch culvert that runs under the roadway now, and it is undersized as it sits, which is leading to overtopping of the roadway in heavy rainstorms. As part of this development, the developer of VAPCO will be upgrading that pipe under the roadway to 3 culverts instead of just the 1 to help mitigate that. In reference to landscaping, so one of the other concerns was the view to and from the property. I'm going to skip ahead to the plan sheet that shows the landscaping. So there is adequate landscaping that complies with the Carroll County Landscape Manual. And landscaping also has a surplus, which is above and beyond the requirements along Kraus Mill Road and also along the adjacent residential used properties as well. The project, as mentioned, was already before the Planning and Zoning Commission back in April of last year. Some of the conversation had with the Planning Commission was in reference to the access to the property, how frequent the business will be utilizing the property, how the equipment is going to be stored on the property, but there are also concerns about the proposed storage yard on the future Plain Major Street. Unfortunately, I tried to get representatives from the city of Tawnytown to come in and speak on that since this is their roadway, their Plain Major Street. They were not able to make this meeting. However, they did provide formal correspondence noting that they believe that this use would not have any adverse impacts on their roadway. And they also mentioned that they had the plan to relocate this Plain Major Street to better align with other developments in the area. So going forward, just one more. Forest conservation will be addressed by on-site forest retention. So you can see where the storage yard area is. On the VAPCO property that was on the opposite side of Kraus Mill Road, there is going to be a forest conservation easement to appease the forest conservation requirements. The Soil Conservation District, as well as Grading and Sediment Control, have granted approval of the plan. Stormwater Management has granted final approval of the plan, with stormwater management being addressed via those 3 submerged gravel wetlands that are shown. In the review, the Comprehensive Planning Division determined that the proposed plan is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan 2019 amended, the 2010 Tawnytown Community Comprehensive Plan, and the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan. So pursuant to all of that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the site development plan subject to the 8 conditions that are outlined within the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, as well as Mr. Mathias here.
Mr. Mathias, you need to make a statement, or?
I think David did a more than adequate job summarizing the project. The only thing that I would add is that he mentioned that permits were required from both the state and the feds, and MDE and the Corps, excuse me, have issued those permits.
Okay.
Any discussion, questions?
No, I think we had, when we saw it before, we were pretty exhaustive on our conversation, so I'm good with what they're doing.
Is there any public comment? If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move we approve the site plan as submitted, subject to the 8 conditions noted in the staff report.
Second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Sorry, roll call.
Should we take, let's take a individual vote, Gail.
Mr. Huff? Ms. Kirkner?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Soyson?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon? Mr. Vice Chair, let the record reflect we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You done cut 25 minutes off the schedule already.
Do we have any general public comment? If not, do I have a motion to close this part of the meeting? We're gonna take a break then and work, we have a master plan work session coming up then.
Motion, we close this part of the meeting?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. We are here for our master plan work session, the review of the vision and goals from the adopted plan. This is for discussion only. I have no public comment on this. Daphne, take it away.
Thank you. So we are moving into the phase of trying to pull together the actual pieces to the master plan update. You'll recall last meeting, we talked about the fact that we're working on creating redlined versions of some of the currently adopted master plan, so that as we're updating that information, you can kind of track along to see what's changed. Of course, talking about what's changed is what we've been doing for about the last year or so, and that's all the information in your binder here. So we're now at the point where we're trying to really put some meat on the bones in terms of this update. And we thought we would start at the very top, which is the big picture overriding vision and goals that will kind of direct how we view all of the other pieces of the plan that we're trying to update. So having digested all of the things that we've shared with you over the past year or so, the feedback that you've heard from the public, the feedback that you've heard from the Board of County Commissioners, and all the information that we've shared in the discussions that we've had, I think we're in a good position to start digging into the vision and goals that currently exist and seeing which of those might need some adjusting to reflect either current policies or some of the types of concerns and topics that we've been talking about. So the vision and goals were first drafted in 2014. This plan was amended in 2019. So I think we've got at least a 10-year span here where we want to check and see whether the vision and goals that are in the currently adopted plan still adequately reflect where you all want to see things going and what you've heard in the process of kind of getting a read on where we are right now. So before we dive into the conversation, I'll just give a quick high-level view of things. We have a vision statement that you see in the italicized blue there. And that should really be, as the purple box indicates, a statement that defines the preferred future. It's supposed to be pretty broad. It's supposed to be something that you reach for a bit. It shouldn't necessarily describe exactly everything that's happening right now or how you see things right now. It's a vision. It's that preferred future. But it shouldn't also be completely pie in the sky, unrealistic, because then we want to layer in the goals and the recommendations that will help us get closer to that vision. This is followed by, I think it's 15 goals. They all generally relate to a section in the master plan that deals with a particular topic. Those are not necessarily listed here. Some of those topics have a couple of goals associated with them. But this is the compilation of all of those in one place. And then the remainder of this chapter just kind of identifies what a policy statement is, what a recommendation is, and then the layout of the plan. Those sections will update as the plan actually comes together. So for tonight, I'd like to just focus on the vision and goals and see how far we can get with that discussion. So let's start with the vision. I'm gonna enlarge this just a little bit in case you wanna look at it
You
on
can
the
zoom in
screen.
down on the bottom right, if you'd like.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
100%. Just hit the plus mark.
That's the easy way.
One more. Love that.
All right. So I'll read it out loud, just in case you're an auditory learner. Carroll County is a great place to live, work, and play. The county conserves and promotes its unique rural agricultural heritage, protects its environmental resources, and promotes a balanced approach to new development and economic opportunities consistent with the fabric of its communities. Carroll County values, sorry, that looks like a typo.
Should be its.
Yeah. Values its citizens' unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. Pardon me.
Just
Let me read that over again. Carroll County values and citizens' rights unalienable. Carroll County values and citizens' unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property are respected, protected, and sustained.
And that's just a citizen's unalienable rights, right?
So I think if you took out the middle
Citizen.
part, it would say Carroll County values are respected, protected, and sustained. With the piece in between the two commas, it's adding that in addition to respecting, protecting, and sustaining Carroll County values, we're also respecting, protecting, and sustaining citizens' unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Any changes that you would make to that, based on what you've heard in our discussions? Any concepts, for instance, that might be missing in terms of what you've heard people are hoping for the future, that aren't covered in this in some way?
I mean, I like it just because it obviously references the agricultural, everything, but it also too references how we also realize that we have to have some level of growth, you know. We have to grow, you know, so I like it as it is.
I do too. I think it says that we're going to do a balanced approach to new development and economic opportunities. So, and without naming the communities, but consistent with the communities within Carroll.
Dabney, I like what you have here, or what we have. And to me, it reflects when you had the individual meetings throughout the county, and the people put their little marks or their stickies where they wanted to talk about the things that were most important to them. I think this mirrors a lot of that. So when you look at the overall welfare of the citizens of the county, and from where we've come to where we are, I think this shows what our values are and what we're looking for in the future of Carroll County. So I like what you have here. And it teaches people how to say unalienable.
I think I need a drink of water or something. My mouth is just
The Carroll County test.
unalienable. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
It sure sounds good, though.
Any other comments, thoughts? Okay. Well, we'll use that as our working vision. Of course, as we go through this process, my hope is that if we get to a certain point and something seems like it needs to be revisited, that you all had talked about earlier based on discussions that you have or better understandings of certain things, we can always go back and add things in, take things out, what have you. All right. Let's look at our master plan goals now. And I do just want to kind of highlight the very beginning of this section, and it underscores kind of why we're here, what our basis for doing this plan is, and that is first and foremost to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the general public. So that really kind of guides most of what we're trying to accomplish with a plan, and I think sets the context for these 15 goals. So goal 1, we can just take these in order unless you want to address them some other way.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're doing it. Yeah.
All right. So let's take a look at goal 1. I believe this is in the chapter that relates to interjurisdictional, that's another one that's hard to say.
Inalienable, it's just anything that begins with a vowel, yeah.
Coordination. And the goal is to promote communication and coordination between and among the county, the municipalities, and state and regional jurisdictions on projects and issues of mutual concern. Encourage the involvement of the community in developing, amending, and implementing the master plan. Anything you would amend with that particular goal?
I think we did all of that as we were going through planning and looking at projects, issues. We had open meetings, so I think going forward, I would think we should continue doing the same.
On this topic, first of all, I think this is a great goal, and I don't think we should change anything on that. I do think it's worth putting in this, if there's a section on goal 1 or whatever, jurisdictional cooperation. If there's a section on that, there's something going on. And I don't understand it because I've never lived in a town. I've never lived in a jurisdiction. I've only been in unincorporated Carroll County. As far as I'm concerned, we put the fun in dysfunctional, I mean, so, but my sense is from my little working group is that things are not as they should be between the municipalities and the county. And I don't know what's wrong because everybody talks in code. Does that mean, am I the only one who?
No, as a matter of fact, I think you're on the right track here, and it's something that we want to make sure that as many people as possible understand this. Carroll County is this unique animal.
Yeah.
That it's almost like a tale of two cities. We have the municipalities that want to be autonomous as much as they can.
Right.
They want to forge their own way. However, when the zoning was first established, there was this loose, and maybe it's gotten looser, I wish it was a little tighter, where the county and the municipalities were willing to work together on their unique problems. Sometimes that drifts, and whose fault it is, we don't know. It's just something that naturally happens, where the municipalities want to forge their own way, but then they turn around and say, we're willing to make our own decisions, however, we sure need your help from the county. And I think we saw in some of the presentations that came forward here, that the municipalities kind of stepped up a little bit and said, there are some things we really need your help with, and we'd like to see a little bit better liaison between, maybe like it used to be with certain counties and, or certain jurisdictions. Some of the municipalities, can't afford to do certain things, and they made that very plain.
Yeah.
Then you go to the Freedom and the Finksburg area, now we're talking about a whole different animal.
The different, yeah.
So we have to be cognizant in this master plan that, yes, we're willing to have the municipalities be autonomous and make their own decisions, but we'd like to see a little bit better coordination between the county and the municipalities, the county and these areas that we call Freedom and Finksburg. And I think that came up multiple times in our discussions. How we make that any more poignant in that, I don't know, Daphne, but I think that was something that really struck me when we saw the vision that some of these municipalities had, and then others came in and said, you know what, we're just stuck in gear because we don't quite have that coordination that we might need with the county. So I'd like to emphasize that a little bit more and stress the fact that maybe we need to look into that. And
Yeah, we need to, there's room for improvement there.
I'm glad you brought it up, Peter, because
And it's funny because, I mean, we had two towns sitting here, and, they did their thing, and it was totally in the agenda. It was really kind of a lost opportunity for us to say, hey, before you leave, is there anything you want to say to us? Let's do this, but because they were all here. And because anytime you get, two or more together, we ought to have that, are you okay? Because we're okay. We don't know what we don't know, So and again, I think goal one is right. But I think when we drill down in that section, there ought to be a real exploration of, we seek to improve we can only control what we can control. But within our county, there's no excuse for us not to have better coordination and better communication with our municipalities. And we will do this, this, and this to improve. And we seek to improve it by doing this, this, and this. And have a couple of, I don't know if we can establish milestones, but there needs to be some sort of affirmation within that section, Daphne, that we seek to improve it and we want to be enablers for the municipalities within our county to be whatever it is they want to be.
So-
Within, so long as it's within our visions, I guess. Go ahead.
I think that statement is assuming that our county is in taking the steps to talk to the cities, municipalities. From what I've seen, they do reach out, talk to them. Maybe they could do it a little bit more. And some of the cities, municipalities, towns, aren't saying, oh, come talk to us, because they feel they're able to do it on their own. So I think it's,
It works both ways, right?
Right.
That's what you're saying. And I agree totally, because I think some of them kind of feel like, we should be able to do this. And you know what? With a little bit of help, you probably could. Let us help you.
I know that in Richard and I's, housing group, that was kind of a very common theme as well. A lot of people were essentially saying, well, if it's just in the county and you essentially have to go to the municipalities because that's where the water's at.
That's right.
What are we doing here? It's a moot point because we can make all the changes we want to for housing in the county, but if the municipalities are allowed to kind of do their own thing, and I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, I'm not saying that at all. So that was the same thing, was a common recurring theme with us to where it's we have to go there to get the water, but, we're trying to make these changes and it's only applicable to certain areas, not in, again, where, public water was.
See, what worries me in this, Stephen, is that as the county grows, I'm talking about the municipalities as they grow, and then as the county grows as a whole, all these things are gonna start to blend together shortly, or maybe long-term, but I think it's gonna be sooner than later, where this person's water might be affected by this person's, this municipality.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see that. So I think we just need to encourage more participation of the municipalities in the total plan of the county. I don't think we can stress that enough.
Yeah.
Do they still have that advisory council in Finksburg and the advisory council in
Well, we
South
know
Carolina?
Freedom does.
Eldersburg does, yeah. The
Yeah.
The Freedom District Citizens Association.
Yeah.
So they're
And one of
still
the,
active, aren't they?
yes.
Sort of.
Is there a better way of?
Yeah, I'm not sure about, I'm
Freedom's
not
sort of, kinda.
sure about the frequency of freedom. I know
Yeah, yeah.
Finksburg is.
Is there a better way of being able to work with them, or how? They're kind of out there on their own. And
Yeah. So one of the recommendations that's been floated a couple of times by different folks is the reestablishment of Council of Governments, or some regular, like quarterly gathering of all of the towns and Freedom and Finksburg folks and the commissioners. And that would certainly be something that in this type of chapter, for instance, we would have as a specific implementation recommendation. I wonder if one of the things that you're picking up on for this, the way this particular goal is worded is the subjects of what's being promoted are communication and coordination, and those are fairly weak-sounding words. I mean, we can communicate and coordinate, and it sounds very kind of perfunctory. But what I'm hearing from you all is maybe some desire for stronger language around active engagement with each other and seeking solutions and mutual support and that kind of thing. Is that
Yeah,
the
this,
kind of language that you would like to see?
in a
here?
way, and I'll maybe give you an example, or I'll ask this question, because I'm not sure, I don't know the answer. Let's just take New Windsor.
Yep.
So they've got a problem, and they've had some problems with their septic systems and trying to upgrade it. Union Bridge has a terrible problem up there. They talk about it all the time. What are they gonna do? What I would like to know is, are they on their own when they are asking for grants or help from the state? Or do they coordinate with the county to, because I know when Mr. Roop was the mayor of New Windsor, he really worked hard for New Windsor to get as many grants and different help on different projects as he could. Are they on their own, or do they coordinate with our grant writers here in the county for different things like that? I don't know.
I don't know for sure. I think there is some things that municipalities will handle on their own, other things that maybe the county is either asked to or volunteers to coordinate with or for them. So I think it kind of depends on what the actual funding source may be.
You know, and I'm going to take it a step further. I mean, I think part of what ought to be in this plan is, what does each municipality or area, what do we think are the biggest inhibitors to growth that they would like assistance in solving? And then we as a county go to our delegation as a group and say, look, here are our priorities for the next 10 years. So that 10 years from now, when because we have no term limits, we'll all be sitting here. 10 years from now, when we're all sitting here, we'll be able to say, you know what? Of the 10 things on that list that our county needed to do, we knocked off a couple of them that were heavy lifts. And that is a good thing. And the result of that is this. Because otherwise, we're going to sit here talking about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that's great. I'm all for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But, you know, there are some challenges that all these municipalities have. Let's identify what they are. And as a county, let's try to, you know, if we can only address one in the next 10 years because it's so large, let's flip and do it, you know. Whatever that, if it's sewer for New Windsor, you know, a new sewage system, then, well, you know what, we did it, and now look at what has happened. It's fantastic up there.
So I guess my question in terms of this goal, and we can certainly make sure that those kinds of recommendations are in here, but in terms of this goal, my question would be, is what you are describing adequately captured by the word coordination, or does there need to be another word
Like
in
you're saying, like engagement or, you know, I would say, yeah, you know, communication and coordination among county and municipalities in order to achieve, I don't know, in order to achieve greater goals outlined in this master plan. I don't know. You know, this is, but again, like you're saying, you're right. I mean, that is, communication and coordination is nice, right?
Yeah, and we all do the best we can as in time, where we are in time, but I'll give you a couple examples. Why could we get a bypass around Hampstead but not Manchester? And look what's happened. Look at Manchester now. They have a terrible problem with traffic because a bog turtle showed up. But why didn't we just pursue it and just do a fell swoop? But now we have a problem, a big one, a big problem. That to me is just one example of if everybody could have been coordinated, then we wouldn't have that Manchester traffic problem that we do, where it limits Manchester from doing some great things over there in the future. And that's no dig against Manchester. I'm just saying that there's where I would like to see more coordination, where if there was money there to put a bypass around Hampstead, why in the world? And what happened? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of history there. You know, everybody blamed it on that stupid little bog turtle, but it had to be more than that.
Yeah.
Because we've really got a problem now. And I hate that this municipality is hurting so bad because of that.
But wasn't Hampstead years in the process
Oh, yeah, no
of
question.
getting it, buying the properties? And there was a limit as to how much funds were available to be able to make that all happen. So, and then this stupid little bug turtle. Trust me,
He's
they
probably
get
froze
into
now.
development too.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So it's,
And, you
and
know,
nobody can find them again.
none of us can see in the future, but I would like to see that statement made stronger. Whatever wording we need to use, we can refer to that wording, say, you know, we urge this, or we hope that this, I don't know.
And again, you know, I think, Daphne, I think goal one's not broken, doesn't take a ton of a rewrite, right? Correct? But, you know, in the section that deals with that, I would love to see a more specific, you know, this city would like help dealing with this. This municipality would like help dealing with this. We as a county would like to seek help dealing with these things. You know, 140, the you know, name 2 intersections, 3 intersections, whatever. And then at the end of the decade, we could say, okay, what did we do to move the county forward in those, to address those problems? You know, that bypass may be one of them, right? But again, you know, it took 15 years to get the last one done.
Well, the same thing's happening in Tawnytown now, go through there at rush hour, and it's horrible. So we just need to
Get in
start
front
to
of it.
key on some of these places and say, if we're gonna have development in the future, we wanna place it at the right spots, certainly, but don't create more problems because of that. Let's look at the whole picture.
All right, so, a couple of my notes, and then maybe we can move on to goal 2. I don't want to do all the
wanna get
word,
hung up on
no,
this.
all the wordsmithing. We'll give this to you a couple of different times, but the notes that I have are to look for something that would make this slightly more active, and potentially oriented towards solving problems, overcoming challenges, achieving the desired outcomes. And then a specific note that in that section, we should identify the particular challenges for each of the municipalities that we want to make as a special focus
And the
of
county.
these efforts.
Because that's what, frankly, the county is what we have control over. So, I mean, that should be the first thing on there. But insofar as we're saying work together, I think we should put the municipalities' primary hurdles on there too.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Janice, are you cool?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Okay, let's go on to, and I'll put some language together, and you can look at it again. Let's go on to goal number 2. Here's that word again. Ensure, I'm gonna say it slow. Ensure respect for unalienable individual rights. Encourage community involvement in planning in an open, two-way communication process. Encourage the involvement of the community in planning and implementing the master plan. Provide participants with a balanced perspective on planning goals while promoting the need to respect private property rights. And accurately advise participants of the trade-offs between various forms of development based on real-world effects.
I like that.
I think that is what we do, what we've done, and I think we encourage all that community involvement. I think it's pretty
That's a pretty good goal.
well,
That's a pretty good goal as it is.
yeah.
Now, there's plenty of room for identifying specific recommendations that could make these
Sure.
maybe
Right.
more achievable or what have you, but as a high-level goal, it touches on a lot of the things that I think we've talked
Yeah.
about in terms of trying to make sure everyone's voice is heard and,
And we don't want to lose sight of the individual's rights, so.
Yep.
That puts it right out there.
okay. Good to move on? All right, goal number 3. We're starting to get into some of our natural resources topics. So protect and enhance the water quality of Carroll County's rivers, streams, reservoirs, and aquifers. Comply with applicable state and federal requirements related to water quality and quantity. And maintain and protect adequate water supplies to serve current and planned development. This is a lot of what that, what the WRE was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
was all about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in fact, if I don't have my plan with me, but I do believe that this may be even associated with that water resources element.
And I was just going to say, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that, other than, my sense is there's a lot that's kind of come down from the state in this area. And if we need to enhance this in some way to reflect those things that have come down from the state, I'm just not sure I'm on top of it enough to comment on that. You know what I mean,
Sure.
Daphne? I mean, I think the one to comment is sitting in the back of the room. So, you know, if he's cool with it being this broad, that I'm cool with it too, but it just seems to me that there's a lot of noise around this. So I don't know.
Don't we get, like with the water resource we heard tonight, throughout the year, when these changes come, we get to see them, correct, Chris? Yes, so, and certainly, it's typically above our heads, so.
And I think we kind of capture it where it says comply with applicable state and federal requirements. I'm just saying, if we need to strengthen this in some way because of stuff that's coming down from the state, you know, tell us what we need to do and let's, you know, reflect it in that. But that, yeah, we don't want to be in, I have two ways to look at that, right? The first way to look at it is, I think we do a good job. The second way is, if it's bad law coming down from the state, do we really want to encode that in our own law, even though it's coming down? That's a funny thing to encode something that you don't necessarily agree with.
Do
But-
we have a choice?
I think you have to comply anyway, but you don't have to necessarily, you can be sort of compliant, but not endorsing of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm passively I'm passively not compliant, Janice. I don't know
I
what to
think
say.
if there's one thing Carroll County has done is the water resource element, not only the water quality, but the water resource plans and the developments and all have really been enhanced and enhanced and enhanced. Wow, I don't know how much more we could take.
I don't- yeah.
As a matter of fact.
It seems to me like we're in front of it, right?
And
I would hope.
And I will say that where my farm is located, you know, an example, I remember when a good heavy rain would flood my meadows. I'd love to see a good heavy rain after the last couple of years, but I don't see that anymore. So the stormwater ponds, the stormwater element, all the work that's been done has made a difference. I've seen it.
Good.
And because there's a lot of development that is above my, and I'm part of the drainage area from Westminster moving that way. And I've seen it with the development that's occurred. The stormwater has really helped. So we've stepped up with that. I don't think we have to add one more thing to that part of it. We don't. Maybe we've done more than we should, but it's made a difference.
Yeah.
Well, how about if, I made a note to maybe just verify that what's written here is consistent with what's in the WRE. And if there's any additions or anything like that, we can bring those back to you. But I think otherwise, it's pretty much capturing what the intent of that element
I know
is.
throughout the development process, when things change, the developers have to change it to coincide with what this is, so it's.
Yep. All right, let's move on to goal number 4. This is talking about community facilities. So to the extent feasible, provide adequate and appropriate community investment plan funds to support public facilities and services. Provide an affordable, coordinated, and comprehensive system of community educational opportunities, facilities, and resources, including schools and libraries, which enhance our communities.
Didn't we just see all that in the community investment plan? So I think you all do a good job with providing that information. Richard, what do you think?
Should we have something in there about working with the state to help fund?
Good.
At least make it clear that the state will be involved in this also.
Mhm. Anything else? Okay, let's look at goal number 5. This is focused on transportation. So provide a safe and functional intra-county transportation system that promotes access and mobility for people and goods through a variety of transportation modes. So this would be both private automobile, it could be bicycle, it could even be pedestrian, it could include our paratransit system, those kinds of things. Anything that's missing from this goal?
I think sometime I would be interested in hearing from whatever department it would be about transportation within the county. Because I know you saw a lot and now you don't see a whole lot. So, and I realize it's funding.
Are you talking about the inter-county transit system?
Well, just transit in general for within the county. That's available, but yes, I think it would be something beneficial for us to see.
Bear with me for 1 second. I think we do have some information on that in the
I'm sure we do.
data handbook. I'm just trying to see if I can quickly point you in that direction. We can certainly, though, make sure that,
I see it in here.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, 7, chapter.
oh, I'm going in the wrong direction.
I see chapter 7 has a lot of information.
In the master plan?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we have in this big binder that you guys have, there was from the February 5th, 2025 meeting, we talked about, that was the data handbook, the part 2 of the data handbook. And there is some information on page, it looks like page 24 and 25 on our, oh, it starts on 23, sorry, on our Carroll Transit System.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can, like I said, I can certainly have somebody come in and share directly on the Carroll Transit System, but in the meantime, that's where you'll find.
Okay.
Can you give that to me one more time? I'm sorry, Daphne. What
Sure. So,
section?
the data handbook part 2, which was given to you at your, discussed at the February 5th meeting, and page 23 of that document is where that starts.
Yeah. I'll have to look. I'm sure I got it. I know we were away then because we were in Key West.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are there are a few routes that are available, and you can see some of the ridership data. There are also some routes, like down in South Carroll, that were discontinued, and my understanding is they were discontinued because of the ridership numbers.
Yep.
But, you know, that may be something that, I know we did receive some comments as part of the open houses from people in that area who were interested in reinstating that.
Hasn't that been replaced by these, you know, like Carroll Lutheran Village and
Yeah, but
Brightview?
that's-
They have their own.
They do.
system.
Okay,
But that's specific to them.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
outside of that village, it's not something you can get. So,
yeah.
just a thought.
This is a hard one to get a handle on because how Carroll County's set up as far as the topography
Yeah.
itself.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You look at like the Tapsco area and all the way up in the Tawnytown area and the line. I mean, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
You could have a transportation system for, say, Tawnytown, but what good does that do if everybody wants to go to Westminster? You know, that is just a tough row to hoe.
yeah.
So I don't know how you could define it any better than this. You just have to leave it the way it is and do the best you can. That's how I view this.
Oh, I wasn't looking to change this, just to
Yeah.
get, for
Understand
us
it.
to
Underst-
get
No, I understand that.
a
but-
little.
But it's just, I think this is when you have to keep as general as possible.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it's
all you
very,
can do.
it's very, the way it's worded is all-encompassing, and the kinds of things that it is meant to address are so varied that it has to be pretty all-encompassing. Now, I will say, we have a transportation master plan that has been done in the last few years that we'll be looking to roll into this master plan, and we can reevaluate what's recommended in that document in light of this goal and other things that we discussed during the master plan update. But that is a significant way that this goal can be implemented as projects that are identified in that transportation master plan can get done.
Yeah. I know there are lots of smaller assisted livings, nursing homes throughout the county, of course, that don't have their own transportation modes, so I think it would be beneficial to know, and I'm sure the county gives those places information on who and what may come. Okay,
All right,
I'm good. Number 6.
so keep this one as is for now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right. Goal number 6. This one is short and sweet, but
There's a lot there. Mary.
incredibly complex. Encourage a range of housing types, density, and affordability.
I think that's good enough. This is another, almost a non-definable,
Oh, yeah, like.
what is
What's
affordability?
affordable?
You know, nobody's ever been able to tell me what affordable housing is.
Okay, so
It depends on a certain demographic. So what's affordable in one area cannot be, I like
Yeah.
what we have. Let's keep it that way.
I'm gonna push on this for a second, if I can, Ralph.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, you're the man. I appreciate it. Y'all are reading the same stuff I'm reading. And I think there are two things that are kind of the Manhattan Project for the next 10 years for our country. And it's not just Carroll County. One's energy, which we can't solve in this room. And the second's housing affordability. And, I mean, every realtor I talk to, I mean, Janice, I mean, this is, and so for us to say, you know, I would like to see us kind of dig in, once we kind of get pretty far into this, I would like to see us dig in on housing affordability and consider some things outside the box. Along the lines of, and I'm not talking about mobile home parks. I don't want to create a slum. That's my biggest fear here. I don't want to create a slum. But I do think that if we came up with a zone of housing that allowed for, and I'm talking, I mean, when I talk outside the box, I'm talking about fixed homes, nothing on wheels, nothing that you roll in and plug it in, and you could roll out the next night in the middle of the night. I'm talking about permanent homes for people who want to live and work here and teach here, EMTs, that kind of thing. If you want to live and work in this county, we've got to come up with a solution. And it requires us to allow for things that I don't like, Murph. I mean, I don't like modular housing. I don't like container homes. But if we don't at least think about it and talk about it, again, I don't like it.
All right. So here's where you're thinking outside the box, and I'm glad. But this is where the municipalities can step up and work with us, because where are the open spaces areas? What has deteriorated that we could fix and do better? Where I get worried about this kind of language is that we've always connected affordability with subsidization.
No, that's not.
And that is not what I want to see in Carroll County. I want people to be able to live freely, make their own decisions. So affordability, I'm okay with. Subsidization, I'm not.
I'm sorry, can we not
Go ahead.
talk about that, from a fair housing standard? But I think, and I brought it up to Tom Gordon, and he kind of took it and has talked about it some. If you ever have the opportunity to go over to Montgomery County and see some of the developments that they do, they encompass everybody. They encompass multi-million-dollar properties.
That's right.
They encompass homes that are for people that are middle income. They encompass homes that are specifically for fire teachers. And they do it in a way that you go from one development directly into the next, and it all blends very
harmoniously.
Thank you.
You're really having a hard time.
We're struggling.
But I would love to see us look at something like that and encourage the developers not to say, oh, I've got, 100 acres and I just want to build multi-million-dollar homes.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
that's what, but you need to have them work on it, and there's probably some grants that end up have to be given, but it's worth, and I think Howard County might do it to a degree too, but it's worth looking and exploring those avenues for the future, because that's where affordability comes in.
And
We lose so many people that go to Pennsylvania because they can't afford it here.
Well, and I agree entirely with you, Janice. And I think that there is and if we think about it, we would be hard pressed not to realize that we're living it, because we have not seen a well thought out master. We've got one, we won't name it, but we've got one that's coming, that's single family homes, but they're not starter homes. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We have not seen anything of what we're talking about here. We haven't seen it in the entire time I've been on this commission. And the fact that the only thing we're seeing is over 55 homes is also concerning to me. As a guy who's over 55 and headed that direction, I'm glad that we're building an inventory. But you know what? On either end of the spectrum, on the We haven't seen anything in a long time that was affordable, and we haven't seen anything in a long time that was well thought out and that was high-end. And we're getting the mediocre middle, which is really concerning to me, because we don't want to be a mediocre county. And by design, because of things that we're doing, the unintended consequences are we're in the mediocre middle. And Ralph, we've never wanted to be mediocre. Nowhere in our, I think we all agree, nowhere in our master plan and our vision and goals is to say, hey, I want to be mediocre. This is what we're shooting for.
I don't think, I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole and say we're mediocre, because if you look at some of the properties out there, they're $1 million plus and keep escalating. Of course, if you are a scholar of real estate and have seen how there's peaks and valleys, and it's always going to be that way, and it's happened numerous times, I suspect somewhere probably in the next several years, we'll be seeing the valley come back around.
A lot of this is dictated on the cost of land.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so expensive to even have the property, so that to make it worthwhile, you have to build a big house on it. I mean,
Well,
it's weird how we're doing this.
if you have enough ground, I mean, we're not going to solve that
Yeah.
here, but if you have enough ground that you can do, you can divide it up and have bigger homes and less homes. I've heard people say, well, you know, we're going to build the bigger homes because then it opens up the homes for the people that can afford the homes the others are moving from.
Move up, yeah.
Well, and that's all well and good, but lots of people that need to buy a house may not just want somebody else's house. They may want their own to start, and start with a smaller home, so.
But Janice, what has caused this? Have we tightened up our code so much that we can't even entice builders to come in and do those mixed-use developments? Is that what's going on here? That they do it in Montgomery County, but we've tightened things up so much here that developers aren't interested in doing those mixed use.
We don't have a section of our code that allows for it.
For those
That's what
major
I'm saying.
developers.
Yeah, we don't have
What have we pushed?
we don't have a section of our code that allows for someone to come in and say, hey, look, I know this was zoned ag, but I think I could pay to get sewer down and water down to it, and I would like to develop retail along the highway. Behind that, I'd like to put some starter homes, and behind that, I'd like to put some, but these are gonna be single-family homes. We don't have anything in our code that allows for somebody to come in. Maybe you could do it under the PUD,
PUD, maybe.
maybe,
yeah.
but I doubt it.
With a lot of those things are, and I didn't mean, is in those big counties, those major developments, all that, those major developers, they want one thing, and that is tax breaks.
Right.
And if you
What?
look at the
I said grants.
tens of millions of dollars in tax breaks that, let's say, the Port Covington development was. I mean, you're talking tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. And from what I understand, they got the city to pay to put all the infrastructure in.
Yeah.
You want us to develop this, you're gonna put all this money up, you're gonna give us these breaks. So that's the problem, and they're just, you're not going to get, you know, Richard and I in our group too was the same thing, talking about, okay, well, you want starter homes. You gotta build them in the municipalities where the water are. Well, but then you also run into the issue where, okay, well, now we're doing ag pres, and if you look at a lot of the municipalities, they're kind of segregated, so then you have to build houses outside of that, their own well water. MDE, you have to have, what, a minimum of 3 acres. You're not building a house for $400,000 on 3 acres of land. So that's the big issue, and I see it in the city all the time. Okay, well, we're gonna give you tax breaks, but you have to give us 20% of the housing has to be, you know, for low income, this or that. The rest of it, market rate, charge whatever you want. I mean, there's literally a building in the city, right down on Key Highway, where the upper level apartments are $10,000 a month. But to get those tax breaks, they also have a percentage of them that are low-income housing. So you have that mix, and that's the biggest thing. And not saying the county can afford it, can't afford it, but if you want that type of development, you know, you're not going to get a big developer in here unless basically they never have to pay property taxes, because even Port Covington, it's tens of millions of dollars, and it's like for 10, 15 years where they don't have to pay a penny of property tax to Baltimore City. And by then, which Kevin Plank's already sold what he didn't develop, and he'll sell the rest of it. So he'll just, that's what those developers do. They hold the buildings just long enough to, and then, so, I mean, that's just a big part of it.
So, I mean, obviously, on goal 6, it's a great goal, but I do think, and I'm of the ilk that at either end of the spectrum, when we drill down on this as a section, the housing section, I do think it's a Manhattan Project for us, because we need to come up with a way to allow for someone, because Richard's not wrong. I mean, there are only 2 ways to approach this, and one of it is the cost of it. And we either have to help lower the costs, shorten the development cycle, the permitting process, and all those kinds of things. But we also need to be willing to allow for these modular homes that you can come in and you can build for $70,000. They're not, 4-bedroom, 3.5 baths homes. They're 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes. I mean, and that's, as a guy who, again, I don't want to develop a slum. That's not what we want to do, but we do want to enable people to come work here, live here, aspire to live here, aspire to move up. I don't know how else to do it if we don't think outside the box. And so there needs to be something in that section on housing within our master plan. The goal, I think, is fine, and I'm fine with you on Ralph, but I think we really ought to drill down. And you know what? We think about it, we propose something, and we don't like it. We did the best we could, but I think this is what the state is asking us to do. Because again, we talk about affordability. We know what affordability is. Listen, let's not throw up our hands and say we don't know. We know what it is, and we don't have it. You know what it is? Because it's not 400,000. That's not what when people say affordable, and by the way, I won't go for the Fair Housing Act. I won't say it. We're not going there. We are a bedroom community. We want it to be nice, safe. We want people to live here who want to live here, right? Bring them. Let's bring one and all. Life, liberty, pursuit. Let's do this.
These modular homes, you can't tell the difference.
No.
They've come a long way, haven't they?
My next door neighbor built a modular home, and nobody knows that it's a modular home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to, I do work for a bank over in Easton. It's the largest bank headquartered in Maryland. And there's a guy on the board who runs a nonprofit, and this is what he does. And I've been talking to him into his ear for the last 6 months. And I'm telling you, we as a county, we may not want to do it. We can do it. We may not want to do it. I think we as a group ought to put forward some ideas that say, hey, we think we can do this. Now, then the question is to the commissioners, do you want to do it? That's not our call. Right. That could be their call. But I think we ought to at least, you built a modular home, you're saying it's a good home and you wouldn't know. I'm telling you, I think we can do this as a group. And I don't mean to be the pep talk about this, but I think this is, we've been talking about this. How often have we heard affordability? The entire time that we've had this master plan. We've been talking about it.
As a realtor, that's all we talk about. We're going to meet the delegates Monday night. We're going to Annapolis, and that's one of our key talking points for everybody down there.
And a lot of it too with the county, I'm an elder millennial, but the younger millennials, you're getting into Gen Z, and because look, as an elder millennial, we've not saying compare, but we've been through a lot, from the Great Recession to everything else that's kind of happened throughout, when is, let's say, your wealth building phase, right? So a lot of people of the Gen Z and the younger millennials, they don't want those big houses. They want a house that, hey, I can raise a family in, I can afford it, but you know what? We can go afford to go walk downtown and or wherever that might be. And I also think, you know, there might be a little tone deafness with a lot of the developers that do come in here. Well, everybody wants a 5,000 square foot, you know, $1 million+ house. And it's like, they don't. And you look at it now, like where my family is, okay, so we're in that prime phase where you would say, well, you're going to move up into the next house. No, I'm not. I don't like cutting the grass I have now, much less moving into something bigger. So there's not going to be that upward mobility because my generation, we don't want that.
Right.
I want to be able to go away for a weekend and not have to worry about a, you know, $2,000 a month heating bill and, you know, paying a $5,000 a month mortgage for just to say I have this big house.
We see a lot of families, parents buying a house, kids either living in the main part and parents below or adding on, so.
Yep.
It's definitely more generational that they're looking for that type of housing, some of them, because they know their children aren't going to be moving up anytime in the near future.
Quite frankly, then we've.
Yes, so we've talked for 25 minutes on a 9-word sentence. And again, I think the phrase is fine, but there's more there that we got to do. And I just,
There's a whole lot to unpack in the recommendations
Yes,
as
ma'am.
to how you would encourage a range of housing
Yes.
types,
Yes, there you
density,
go.
and affordability.
Sorry.
my bad. I
And I
apologize.
haven't heard anything in this conversation yet that would add any specific boundaries around this, like in order to do such and such or whatever. I think it sounds like the broader the better at this point, because all kinds of ideas then can be on the table for consideration.
Plus what the state will,
Yeah, we don't want to
Forward.
think, we don't want to think about it.
Yep. Okay. So goal 6, we'll keep as is. Goal 7, preserve at least 100,000 acres of agricultural land to support the production of agricultural products and promotion of related agribusiness.
that you, Ralph.
Ralph, do you want to put something in there about more strategic approach
I sure
towards?
do.
Okay, there you
I
go.
sure do.
Bring it up.
To me, this is too broad. And I've preached this for quite a while now. I've had a couple of people pick up on it. I think we really need to be more strategic on what we do. We talk about affordability. We got affordability problems right here also. Because if we don't do a strategic plan on how we're gonna move forward with agricultural land preservation, then we're wasting our money, we're wasting our time and our talent. We gotta have something better than what I would call a shotgun approach. I think we need to put the word strategic in there. I don't think we should have agricultural preservation on areas where it's would be easier to access main roadways, like 140. Where there's certain areas that could be used for purposes other than ag. I see it happening. You know, we talk about having some of these municipalities in. Well, some of them, it was a good thing, because how many nice affordable homes do you think we're gonna have next to a quarry? Now, ag preservation has been the greatest protector of the quarries anywhere, where we'd have all kinds of lawsuits of the quarries blasting people out of their homes. I mean, it happens. Run them out of water, things like that. So ag preservation, I've said this from day one, the quarries should be adding money to the ag preservation program because we protected the quarries.
Interesting.
Bridge, New Windsor,
Mhm.
look at that whole Wakefield Valley area
Yeah.
and then all the way up through Union Bridge where these quarries are doing nothing but expanding, and that's, they're gonna keep expanding. So
Okay.
in that regard, we're doing a good thing.
Okay.
So if we have our priority preservation areas, we should key on them. We should not put ag pres where it would hinder further good uses of that property. And believe me, I want to see as much, I'm so upset about covering ag land with certain elements that are out there now.
yep.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Solar. That is a disgrace. But as far as strategic planning on ag preservation, we need to do it. And
So-
or our money is wasted. We don't
Well-
want to waste, we want to use our money as strategic as we can. Give you an example, and I don't want to hold this up, but I'll give you this example. The values, we started out in the ag preservation program preserving land for $500, $600, $700 an acre. Now we're up to what, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 an acre? But in the meantime, the state has never changed their formulas. So if we put up $1 million, the state will put up 1.3. And then they moved it up one time to $2 million. If we put up 1.3 million, the state put it up to $2 million. You go over to Rural Legacy, that's a grant program. And the max that, when I was in here, was $500,000. How much is that gonna help us? So that has never, the state has never kept up with the values that we're seeing now. So then we have to add county money to make all this work. So should we be spending big money on 23 acres somewhere instead of pooling the money and looking for a 100 acre?
That's right.
Parcels. And there's where I think we should define this language a little bit more. And I'm not as worried about 100,000 acres as I am strategically putting land under easement in the right spots.
That's right.
So
Strategically preserve at least.
Now, how we're gonna change that language, I'm not sure. I would
Strategically
love to see
preserve.
the word strategic in there.
Strategically preserve at least
If we
100,000
don't do it, we're
acres.
gonna fall behind way more than we are now.
Well, and with any program, Ralph, the last 10, 15% is where you make the most impact. That's where the plan should come together.
Sure.
And that's where we are. We're at 75,000. So if we don't start, getting people acclimated to this is what we're trying to do, we're trying to put the bow on this thing to make it to where it worked and the outcome was what we all wanted it to be. If we don't start doing it now, we're not going to get there. So, yeah, the last 10, 15% is going to be the most important to make sure that this program was successful.
And it's gonna be certainly expensive, but it just drives me crazy if you have an area like this and there's no ag pres much in that area and you see one right in the middle of it and you say, why?
Why?
We should never, and-
Agreed.
And maybe I made some of those mistakes. We all have. But I think we're so far along with the program, we've been so successful with the program.
We can now
that
be
we-
strategic.
that we start to need to really define it.
Agreed.
How are we gonna make this work? And
Agreed.
Can we take land that's in ag preservation out of ag preservation?
Ooh.
Well,
It's-
that depends. At one time, I would say absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it depends on who holds that easement.
Well,
So
and
if
yeah,
the state,
Use your example there. There's
Okay.
that little piece that really doesn't serve any purpose at all. Take that out of ag preservation.
well, it would be costly. It would be costly to do that. Because if you do, you don't just pay the person back on how much money they put in the program. It's based on current values. So, no, I don't even want to go there at all. I don't even want to talk about it. But Richard, it depends on who holds the easement. The state holds the easement, DNR holds the easement, which is part of the state, co-held with the county, okay? The county has their own easements held by the county commissioners. The county commissioners hold sway on that. So, at one time, I would have told the crowds, no, it is a permanent easement, that's what it says. with the power lines going through, solar on ag and all this stuff that's going on, I'm starting to wonder. So there's the answer. I'd like to see something strategic in there.
Got you. So, so we can suggest some rewording that would wrap in the idea of strategic preservation as well as not hemming in the municipalities. And part of the strategic aspect being building off of and filling in existing blocks of preserved land. Does that sound right?
Well, I think we should actually, I'd love to see the word in there, you know, we have priority preservation areas. And whether we put it in this language or we go one down later on in more of a detailed part of the plan itself, where we talk about, you know, building the contiguous acres, you know, keying on priority preservation areas and rural legacy areas.
Yeah, I mean, goal 8 addresses some of that.
Well, it does.
Yeah, so we could look at, so goal 8 is in the, I think it's a separate chapter of the master plan that's
chapter.
specifically for the priority preservation area. There's nothing to say that we couldn't sort of combine those and look at
Well, there was
priority
talk,
preservation area as part of that strategic approach to land preservation.
and there was talk in that committee about expanding the priority preservation areas. That would be a hard lift. That would really be a hard lift. You'd have to have some good strategic reasons for doing that. I think we've done well on creating the priority preservation areas that we have, including the Upper Patapsco and the Little Pipe Creek Rural Legacy areas. That's a big chunk of this county.
And I can't remember, I did calculate this not too long ago, to figure out what percentage we are at. So the goal 8 is to preserve 80% of the undeveloped land in the PPA. And I did calculate it.
I knew that at one time,
And I can't
but
remember what I
the
calculated
figures
it
have
out to.
changed.
But there's plenty of land still that could be preserved within that target of 80%. So I could take a stab at trying to merge those two goals, or maybe it's separated by a semicolon or
Yeah,
something like that.
relate them in some way to one or the other.
I don't see where we need goal 7 and goal 8 as separate. Why would we have those separate?
Yeah, I think.
I think we could merge those two.
Yeah, I think they were just separate because the PPA was treated as its own separate element / chapter, but it doesn't have to be that way.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
And then goal 8, I mean, we can have it as a goal, but that really can't be changed unless we wanted to bump it up, because the priority preservation area legislation specifically states that that's the goal
That's the number.
of the priority preservation area.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll see what we can come up with in terms of maybe merging those two together and adding in this notion of strategic preservation, without losing this idea that's kind of in the second part of that goal 7, which is to support the production of agricultural
Right.
products and promotion of
Right.
related agribusiness. All right. Are you guys good to keep rolling along for a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's go into goal 9 then. This is looking at parks. So the goal is to provide an affordable, coordinated, and comprehensive system of public parks, public and private parks, recreational facilities and programs, and open space that will enhance our communities.
And that's being done basically through program open space. So, I mean, you may as well leave it the way it is.
Excuse me.
Because we only have so much money from program open space.
Yeah. Although, I mean, if we were to take a little bit more proactive approach in terms of, say, developments and perhaps what types of things we request when developers make proposals, you could look at creating some sort of open space network or public spaces, public amenities that become part of this sort of system.
But to the Park and Rec's point, when we do that, they don't necessarily want to take control of that. We're just saying, as a part of the development process, we're going to look at trying to incorporate more open space and activity spaces within developments. Is that what we're saying? That are
Could
not
be.
necessarily maintained by the county?
Well, yes and no. It depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
So if you're trying to achieve a system of parks that are open and accessible to anyone in the community, then there has to be some element of public ownership to it, because I think in most other cases, that's private land owned by a homeowners association who can say who can and can't
Use it.
access it.
Right, all right, I see what you're saying.
So, I mean, there are pros and cons to that, you know,
Yep.
if you're simply trying to create open space so that it's not developed, then that can work. If you're looking to create a network that the entire community can take advantage of, then that's less successful in that model.
Doesn't the Department of Recreation and Parks now, when they get X amount of dollars in program open space, don't they determine at that point where they want to put it?
Yeah.
You know, going to landowners that live right next to open space, trying to expand it. I mean, we've been doing that for years, exactly like that. So, I mean, it's really up to how much money you have, and then a department determining where they want to try to acquire land to either add on to existing
Yeah.
or new areas.
Yeah.
So, you know, just leave it the way it is.
Yeah, and this also encompasses recreational facilities and programs, and while there are some public recreational facilities and obviously public programming that happens, there are also things like golf courses, for instance, that contribute to our recreational landscape, but are privately owned. So I think it's trying to find sort of a balance there between public and private, what's offered and what's lacking. But it seems like all of that is covered under Goal 9. I don't know if you guys have anything you would want to
Leave it the way it is.
modify.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay?
Can we go back to number 6, please?
Sure.
No, I'm being sarcastic.
number one. Okay, goal 10. Also sort of vague, but, oh, thank you. Here, I can do it. There we go. Preserve the county's historic, cultural, scenic, and architectural heritage. I'd have to dig into what the specific recommendations are in this section, but that's a pretty broad goal and pretty hard to do because pretty much everything
Yeah.
out there is part of the county's history.
Well, and the state maintains an inventory of historical properties. And it's amazing what's on that inventory because, you know, I actually went through that and made a list of everything within the Freedom District that was historical. It was amazing. There are places listed that don't even, they've fallen down and they've been removed. They've been carted off. But they're listed on the
Maryland Inventory of Historic Places.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
They're still on there. And, but they've been removed for years. So, I mean, you'll talk about a three-bay home such as, you know, it hasn't been there for years. So, but that has nothing to do with here or there. I agree. I love history. I applaud this. At the same time, it would be great to get some retired people who love history to go through there and help them re-inventory that because it needs some major updating. I mean, I could send you what I did. It's not 50, it's like 170 parcels that are in the Freedom District. It's crazy.
I think
The Historic Society,
out the county, it's
do
pretty.
they deal with this at all?
The who? I'm sorry?
Historical Society,
Historic preservation?
yeah.
No, they're primarily chartered to just deal with Union.
Well, so we have the Carroll County Historical Society, which I think has a pretty broad
Yeah.
mission.
And then you have the historic.
And then we
preservation.
have the Historic Preservation Commission, which only has authority in
Union Bridge.
historic districts, of which we have one, which is in Uniontown.
Uniontown.
So, but this section of the plan talks about a lot of other, I mean, it talks about our historic properties. It also talks about the heritage tourism initiatives that the county is party to, principally the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area and the Journey Through Hallowed Ground, National Heritage something. So it does cover a lot, not just old buildings. To me, what some of the challenges with this goal is the word preserve. Because I think in some cases, yes, you do want to preserve those things. But also sometimes you might want to promote or enhance them. So,
What you do, preserve, promote, enhance?
sure.
I mean, really, I mean, because it does hit the nail on the head a little. I think just preserve, promote, enhance the county's historic, cultural, scenic, and architectural heritage. Kind of does make it more all-encompassing, I guess.
There you go, Steve. Way to go.
Just saying.
Enhance.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys good with that?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
All right.
It's easier as time goes on.
Hey, if
All right.
Lawrence finds another.
Come on, hang in there. We've got 5 more. Okay, goal 11 brings us back to some environmental resources. So this is to protect, maintain, and restore where feasible the environmental resources and natural ecosystems in the county by promoting land use practices that are in balance with and minimize the effects on the natural environment, subject to appropriate cost-benefit analysis.
Parks, just right up your alley.
As president of the Society for the Preservation of the Bog Turtle, I would like to add, just kidding.
No.
Was that the,
We'll just put a picture there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm for the bog turtle. I want to be clear. I love reptiles. I love amphibians are my jam.
Well. What did you say, the little bog turtle?
I think that was the turtle, because there was a bridge at the bottom of
Yeah,
Cape Horn. For the
it was-
longest time, they couldn't finish it, and somebody said it was like a bug or something, but I guess it was a turtle.
Bog turtle.
They found some down off of Bartlett Road that prohibited a road from going through.
Yeah, because of the bog turtle.
Of course.
Bypass.
Nobody could see the stupid
I-
things.
Yeah, I'm joking about this, but in all seriousness, I'm all for all of that, and I have nothing to add.
Okay? Goal 12 is oriented to mineral resources, and we do have a mineral resources element of our plan. So this is to protect certain mineral resources of current and future economic importance from preemptive land uses, and to ensure availability for recovery in a manner that minimizes impacts to surrounding areas. And for reclamation purposes, assure recovery to an environmentally sensitive, aesthetically pleasing condition. And that's essentially what our mineral resource overlay zoning suite does. It's identified where particular recoverable resources are, where they can be actively recovered, where they could potentially be recovered, and then what your notification area is for areas surrounding, the buffer areas surrounding those. Anything to add or change on goal 12?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Goal 13 is a multi-part goal to promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities by A, supporting the retention and expansion of existing businesses, including agribusiness, through sensible land use policies. B, focusing on development and redevelopment of existing vacant and underutilized commercial and industrial properties. C, providing land appropriately located and zoned for a variety of types and intensities of new economic development activities. And D, maintaining a desirable balance between economic development and residential development.
We kind of address these things on a case-by-case basis. So, I don't see any problem with the way it is now, but.
I've mentioned this before. I would love to see some sort of, within the, not within the goals, fine. Within that section, I would like to see some objective measurements that we as a county have said we would like to have, this kind of growth, this, a number of, but we, in order to do that, we also have to identify places where we think it's appropriate to be able to achieve it. If we want to have 200,000 square feet of industrial space absorbed in a year, we need to identify where we think that could go, and it's probably down there by I-70 and not, up off I-40 towards Pennsylvania. So, being able to identify it and make it happen. I think, promote a healthy economy, that's great. I would like to see some sort of objective markers that we've created that says, okay, this is how we're going to try to do it. Now, the funny thing about that is we as a county, and this is where the interjurisdictional thing comes up, easy for us to say, we identify a piece of land down by Mount Airy, and Mount Airy says, well, wait a minute, we don't want industrial down here. We don't want a big box. And so that's where we need to communicate, to say, okay, this is what we're thinking. And if they say we're not thinking that, then we're back to, okay, well, what are you thinking? Because we'll incorporate that instead, because, you know, we're saying we're gonna be inclusive or, you know, or communicative with our municipalities. But again, I would like to see within the section on this goal, I would like to have some guidance as to what we think a healthy economy is. So that 10 years from now, when we look back, we've said, okay, we set as a goal to develop, you know, to promote, encourage the development of 500 homes a year, or, you know, if we say we want to grow, what's healthy growth?
Well, this is more employment and economic development, too.
Right.
So if you have the master plan book and you look at chapter 15, it kind of describes a lot of that. Of course, it's dated because it's years back. So assuming that when somebody digs in and does the significance again, that all would be updated to bring more current numbers, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, there's a portion in this that we alluded to previously, in C, providing land appropriately located and zoned for a variety of types of such and such. That's what I mean about strategically locate, or strategically doing that ag-pres, so that we have that. And, you know, I think you talked about Mount Airy, so we'll bring it up. There's a wonderful stretch of land.
There is.
From the Lee Sharp property
Yes,
to
sir.
Twin Arch.
Yes, sir.
And I can just see that being
Something
a
else.
top-notch
Yeah.
tech center
Yep.
of medical centers and places where people could go for radiation treatment and all kinds of.
Labs, research.
dermatology, labs,
Yeah.
research. It's just there for the taking.
Yes, sir. I agree totally.
Now, wouldn't that be a shame if one of those farms along that way would be in ag preservation?
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm
That's what
talking
we're
about.
talking about.
C, right there.
Agreed.
That's where I'm
Agreed.
heading with this.
Agree totally.
I don't know whether we should put some kind of language in there so that there's a coordinating effort between municipalities and the county to provide those things. Whether we need language in there that would talk about that, or whether we need to drill down deeper in a later part of the section to do, for that kind of thing to happen. Because, you know, if Mount Airy would annex all that in, and then the county could come in with economic development and help that happen.
Help it happen.
You know, maybe this is pie in the sky, but I can see it. I see it happening in other areas. So that to me is
But given its proximity to I-70, that's the spot. It really
providing
is.
lands appropriately, located. Yeah, that's what I mean.
So maybe in C, we could work in some language that also alludes to coordinating with the municipalities in a way to also achieve some of these same things.
And you know, I think we have some basis for this, Daphne, because when Mount Airy came here and gave their
It's the best presentation we
which
had.
I thought was tremendous.
It was the best one.
It was a great presentation, and
They had
I really was on board with them.
I was too.
I could see this.
Absolutely.
I talked to him a little bit after that, and I could just see if our economic development people in Carroll County could coordinate with Mount Airy and their people in this, wouldn't that be a great marriage? So, yes, I
on
would
this.
like to put something like that in there, Daphne,
All right.
Thank you.
if we could.
Anything else on
13? No,
Goal
ma'am.
13? And I've noted to sort of wherever that gets nested to look at some kind of, I don't know if they're KPIs or something that'll give us some tracking mechanism for how we're doing. Okay,
Thank you.
2 more. Goal 14 then is to facilitate a development pattern that remains consistent with the fabric of our communities, is in harmony with the surrounding built and natural environments, encourages community interaction, and in rural areas preserves the county's rural character. And I'm just going to read goal 15 too, because I believe these are both in the same chapter and they
Yes.
kind of are related. So pursue policies that facilitate development in appropriate areas, including the designated growth areas, thereby protecting and conserving agricultural and environmental resources, preserving open space, and providing public facilities and services efficiently and cost effectively.
Daphne, do we have any language in any of these goals that talks about communications? Carroll County, like broadband and, is there anything in here that refers to, you know, because there's a lot of that going on now where we're trying to reach out to these areas with
Yeah.
broadband and enhancing our communication network.
I would have to confirm this, but it's probably in the public facilities and services section, but I'd have to verify
Okay, I
that.
just was wondering, that's the only thing I had a question about on these.
For future consideration, we also, I know there is a section in here that talks about, there's one of these chapters where we touch on solar.
Yeah,
It's possible that we might, I mean, you mentioned energy as being kind of one of the
Big things coming down the
big
pipe.
things. It's possible that we might want to look at energy as kind of its own section, in which case we would want to look at some goals for that as well. But
Yep.
that's, if that evolves out of the discussions from our update process.
It's a post-it to consider. I agree
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
Because it's coming.
yeah.
Whether we want it to or not.
That's an aside. Now, as far as broadband is concerned, I can verify where that is in the plan, but I do think we touch on it.
I think, I mean, I saw it somewhere in here too, and
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a statement about broadband being expanded and road surfaces, unpaved roads beginning paved. I recall that being kind of in the same area. I'm not sure if I'm recalling a different document.
Okay. Okay, so as far as goal 14 and 15 go, mostly focused on what the development pattern is that we're trying to achieve and how the built and natural environments relate to each other, how our communities function.
We haven't used the phrase development pattern much, and I think this is probably the only place I've really ever seen it. What do we mean by that, Daphne? And this isn't a quiz. Help me understand what we think we mean by that.
I would define it as the places in which,
Stuff makes sense. We're not putting stuff where it shouldn't be, I'm asking.
yeah. Well, development pattern, I mean, I'm trying to describe it without only describing the built environment, because I think it's both the built and the natural environment.
Good.
So collectively, what does that pattern look like when you take developed areas and undeveloped areas or semi-developed areas. That's your pattern. Is it kind of, is it clustered in little nodes? Is it kind of spread out all over the place? Is it aligned along certain
Corridors.
corridors,
Yeah.
that kind of
Okay.
thing? So how I would read this goal is to try to have a hand in shaping what that pattern is by kind of building off of existing communities, making sure that there is some harmony between where you're building and where you're not building, and that the natural environment is also able to thrive. I love the idea of encouraging community interaction. We talk about where people tend to have that one-on-one interaction. In a lot of places, that's in your public spaces. What do you do when you don't have designated public spaces and everybody has their own private space? And this resonates with me because I do remember talking about some of our statistics when we were going over some of our health statistics and some of the unfortunate data around suicide rates and things like that, and the mental health crisis that we have in our general society right now. And so this notion of community interaction and how we're able to find a sense of a supportive community through our development patterns, I think is an intriguing one.
Okay.
That's my own personal. So that's how I would describe like development pattern. Then goal 15, I think, almost brings that to a little bit more definition. So we're looking at policies that direct growth to specific areas. So designated growth areas as your primary places where that development occurs. And then the flip side of that, which is protecting and conserving ag and environmental resources, open space, and then making sure that the public facilities and services are in place that support that kind of directed growth and protection.
I have nothing to add to either one of those.
I think these two goals are, if you recall, at the very beginning of this process, we talked a little bit about sort of the big ideas that were behind the original county master plan and how that's been implemented and tweaked in some cases, but to a large extent, what was put in place in 1964 has been the path that we've been on. And I think both goals 14 and 15 kind of sum that all up. And those early discussions all seem to indicate that nobody really wanted to radically change that. We like the way things have kind of unfolded, and there's no need to make a radical shift.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, so I have a few of these that I'll work on taking some of the ideas we've talked about here and try to put those into some words and integrate them into the goals. Otherwise, we've got a fair number that that you think are good as they are. And of course, we can always revisit those as we continue to move through this process. But I'll bring some revised text back to you. If not at the next meeting, then definitely the one after that. Our next meeting, we're going to start looking at the recommendations that came from the work groups. And the way we're going to roll through that is we're going to put them all, like all of the, let's say like the capital project ideas. We're going to put them all together so you can see how they compare with each other. So that hopefully that'll give you a chance to discuss any recommendations that might either align or conflict with each other. So you're not saying, yeah, this looks good, and then, 2-3 meetings later, there's another similar recommendation that says something a little bit different, and we have to go back and revisit the first one that you talked about the first time. So we'll look at the master plan, the work group report recommendations, and then we'll start to layer in the master plan recommendations from the adopted plan. And we're going to try to kind of look at this in an iterative way so that at the end of it, we've got a list of recommendations that all sort of are compatible with each other, that preserve goals from recommendations from the existing master plan if they're still relevant and we want to keep them, but also build in some new ones from both the work group reports and things like the open houses and other comments that we've received from the public. Sound good?
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. February 17th is our
Next meeting.
next meeting.
That's a day meeting.
In the morning, 9 a.m.
Day meeting,
9 a.m.
yep.
Yes, they said it was all good.
Okay, so I guess our session's over.
Public. Oh, no, we don't have to.
We
do
don't
it.
have
No public.
We exhausted the
We're
public.
not going there.
You exhausted more than just the public.
So we're done.